Avoid contractor scams. I was helping a lady on our new HVAC guide, and she just happened to be in the state of Virginia where I'm located. And before you click off of this video, we're not just talking about the state of Virginia, but even though she was in the state of Virginia, she was not in my coverage area with Griffin Air. Because of that, she signed up for our guide and I was helping her. What's really good about this is, unlike when I help some folks when I'm not quite as familiar with necessarily the contractors in their area or their state's laws as well, I know the state of Virginia's very well. And so I've been able to help her kind of navigate some of that. And with that said, I was talking to her about our local trade organization that kind of makes sure all the contractors are on the up and up. It's called DPOR here in the state of Virginia, Department of Professional Occupational Regulations. And so other states call it different things. Definitely find out what your state calls it and what they have in place to protect you as the homeowner. But as I was helping her through this, I was able to go to their website, and they've got a guideline that kind of helps homeowners avoid some of these scams that a lot of contractors might be running. Her biggest issue was she found a contractor, she kind of liked him, he's kind of old school, handshake kind of deal, and she was navigating how to deal with, she wanted a contract in place. She wanted to make sure everything's on the up and up before she gets on the hook to owe this person a lot of money, owe this company gobs of money for this new heating and air system. She wants to kind of make sure everything's good, everything's in place. I can only speak for the state of Virginia on this, but I can tell you that the state of Virginia DPOR says a contract should be in place. There shouldn't be any verbal agreements with this sort of stuff. And so with all that said, if you stick around to the end, I'm going to share with you maybe a little loophole, a way that maybe you can talk about some of these things that we're going to go through with your contractor, but still kind of save face. Because a lot of contractors, if you're kind of being a pain in their side, if you're being a difficult customer, then it won't be necessarily that harmonious long-term relationship that a lot of homeowners wish they had, right? They want to have a contractor that they get the warm fuzzies and they have a long-term relationship with, and they have somebody they can count on when they need them. So stick around till the end for that. But let's go through this. I've got a few things. I've actually got 9 things we're going to go through here that I think will help you avoid some of these scams that a lot of contractors either do. Some of these things, they're not necessarily doing it on purpose, but you make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's like you should as the homeowner before you dive into this relationship. Then these things should help you. So the first one is deal only with licensed contractors who meet state requirements for minimum competency. And so the state of Virginia outlines this pretty well. Depending on what state you're in, figure this out. But some states, they're even more strict than Virginia on this. They're very strict. In fact, they'll even throw people in jail if they're doing certain tasks or work and they're not licensed to do so. But then there are other states that are the exact opposite. They're almost not strict enough. They don't have any necessary licensing agreements or trade licenses that you should have in place to do that kind of work. And it doesn't necessarily always mean the homeowner's 100% at risk because they're not meeting certain requirements or licensing. But just realize if you're in one of those states, you kind of want to make sure that everything's on the up and up before you just dive right into this. So I really like that one. Deal only with licensed contractors. In the state of Virginia, they have a place you can go look them up. I've dealt with folks helping them on our guide. There are other states that have that as well. So if you find your local trade organization's website and click on that, a lot of them will have a list, a literal spelled out list of contractors in that state that are licensed, that do carry the license necessary to do that work. I'm not saying it's the end all. Again, I know there's some states that it's not necessarily required. I was talking to a guy on our channel the other day from England, and he said that they don't really have that 100% in place like a lot of states here in the US do. I just think that it's a good thing, especially if your state does require it and then you find out that they don't have it. So most good contractors or tradesmen, if they have a license, they shouldn't have a problem showing that to you. And the second thing on this that the state of Virginia has, and again, I don't think all states have this, but a lot of them do, and that is a way that you can look up past disciplinary actions taken against this contractor. So in the state of Virginia, you can look up their license, and if they have had any troubles with a homeowner or wasn't necessarily doing things the way they should, then you'll be able to find that. Number 3 would be educate yourself about the type of contractor you need for the job and read what you should know before you hire this contractor. I'll put a link to that down in the notes. I think that that's a good read and it will help you out no matter what state you're in. But ultimately, I can tell you that in the state of Virginia, there are not just tradesmen or people that are licensed, but they go one step further and say, if you're going to be a contractor, so at Griffin Air, we're a Class A HVAC and plumbing contractor, they have classes basically saying that if you're not in this class, if you're not a Class B, you can't do work that's above this amount of money. And then if you're not a Class A, you can't go above this amount of money. And so it's basically to protect the homeowner before you give a contractor $200,000 to build you a house and he carries no license at all. Well, he's not licensed to do work that large, if that makes sense. So it's sort of a tiered system, Class A, Class B, Class C. It doesn't necessarily mean that if they hold a B or C that they're a bad contractor or anything. It's not like a grade you get in high school. It's all about that tiered system. If they're starting out, they may be a Class C contractor. But again, this step is just educating yourself on how that works and make sure everything's on the up and up as far as that goes. Ask your friends and neighbors for referrals. A paid advertisement isn't necessarily a good indication of the quality of a contractor's work, and not all online reviews are unbiased or truthful. It's okay to ask for references. I've had homeowners do that. They'll say, hey, before I spend this amount of money with you, do you have any references? Do you have somebody that I can at least just have a quick chat with and ask them a few questions? But I'll even flip that coin and say, if you're going to find a contractor, you're going to do business with them, you're going to spend all this money, you might want to Google them. At least see if they have any reviews, and are any of those reviews bad? Are they scathing bad reviews talking about how maybe this person was treated? Next, get written estimates from at least 3 contractors. Don't automatically choose the lowest bidder. Ask for explanations on price variations among proposals. First, let's highlight that it says at least 3 contractors. I would definitely say that's bare minimum these days. I think most good contractors would say, I'm okay if you're gonna do business with me, I'm okay with you getting more proposals, more estimates. I'm confident that the value that I'm going to provide for the amount of money that I'm charging to do it, I'm confident in that. This is saying don't always go with the lowest bidder. Sometimes you may, if that contractor is meeting all your requirements, they're giving you the warm fuzzies and you know that you're making a good decision. But I do like that this tip says don't automatically choose the lowest bidder. So that's pretty good. And again, I would get as many estimates as you're willing to get. I've had folks on our guide get as many as a dozen estimates. I'm not saying you need to do that. You're probably wasting your time and then the time of a bunch of contractors. I do think that 3 would probably be bare minimum. I think it would be totally normal to get at least 5 estimates. Out of those 5, you're probably going to find 1 or 2 that you just simply will not do business with no matter what they're charging, but it'll give you a front row seat of seeing right away how good a contractor is going to treat you. And you also get an idea of, like, when you're looking at an estimate, you've got something to compare it to. You've got, something apples to apples you can compare. Next, it says insist on getting a detailed contract, including agreed upon start and finish dates. Licensed contractors are required by law to provide a written contract for residential work signed by both parties. And this is one thing that I feel like a lot of homeowners don't insist on enough. That's what the lady that I was helping on our guide, that's what she was up against and dealing with. The contractor had sort of a written out estimate, and it even had a place for her to sign there, but it wasn't a very detailed contract. It didn't say all the specs, here's the system we're going to install, and she just didn't have a very good feeling about that, which I think is normal. I would want things in writing like the warranty and things like how things will be handled. For example, if they have to put a hole in the wall, is the contractor going to hire someone to fix that hole, or is the contractor saying, hey, we're heating and air guys, you don't want us doing your drywall, this is a hole that we're going to put through, but you're going to be responsible for finding someone to repair that. And depending on the project, it could go either way. Neither one's bad, but that's something, again, that I would want in writing up front. Next, it says don't rely on verbal agreements. Get all guarantees, warranties, and promises in writing. Nobody wants to be sitting in a courtroom a month or 2 from now, and then I would say in a lot of cases, the chances of you sitting in a courtroom in the future are probably pretty slim. A lot of times the headaches of trying to sue the contractor and go after them to make things right, you may not even win in court, especially if everything was just verbal. Man, it's just such a better idea that just get everything in writing up front. A good contractor, in my opinion, is not going to be offended by that. A good contractor is going to say, you're right, let's get that in writing. When I get to things like that, I'll even say to the customer, hey, send me an email with that particular issue or question, and I'll respond in writing in the email, hey, here's how we're going to handle that, or hey, this is going to be covered, things like that. That's stuff that you want to make sure, man, just get it in writing, if nothing else, an email or something in writing between the two parties. It's so easy for someone to say, I never said that, right? And then it's just your word against theirs. And a lot of courts, when it comes down to that, then they're just going to look at more of the damage aspect or the compensation aspect. I'm not a lawyer. There's no reason why you shouldn't be getting all that stuff in writing, and a good contractor is not going to have a problem with that anyway. Let that be a good lesson, right? If you have a contractor that all of a sudden has a problem with certain things being in writing, or a problem with showing their licenses or insurance, maybe that's a red flag. Maybe I don't care what their price is or if they're the least expensive, because you're going to get what you pay for, and maybe you won't. Maybe you won't get what you paid for. You went with the cheap guy and then you paid for it and you didn't even get what you paid for. Limit your down payment or deposit. Don't pay 100% of the bill up front until the work is 100% complete. A lot of the detail that this goes into is more related to carpenters, builders, renovations, folks like that. And it kind of goes through the structure of deposit and the installments for payments and things like that, contingencies, whatever. I can tell you that at most good heating and air businesses, they're not going to ask for the money up front. They're not going to say, hey, I need it in cash up front. Most good heating and air businesses, they might ask for a deposit. It's reasonable. Maybe they might ask for a draw. If it's a new construction project, they might say, okay, after rough-in inspection is complete and we get approval, then we expect to have a draw on that, or whatever. The point is, just understand that there might be times when you need to give a deposit, but there's other times that if it doesn't feel right, if they're asking for something up front, and especially everything to be paid in cash up front or something like that, I would definitely say that's a red flag. And then finally, we've got tip-offs to potential rip-offs. Watch out for scams or an unlicensed contractor who solicits door-to-door. You have a 3-day right to cancel a contract negotiated in your home. The next one says it just happens to have the materials left over from a previous job, very popular with asphalt, or is doing work for a neighbor down the street. That's the things that they're gonna say to try to pressure you. I can't say that that's really something that heating and air guys do a lot of. The next one says pressures you into making an immediate decision. This is one of the big ones. I've heard of contractors, I've actually sat through classes where they teach you how to sell. They'll teach you to overcome objections and get them to sign that dotted line. In my opinion, a good contractor shouldn't be doing that they should be, again, okay with you getting more than just their estimate. They may be the most expensive contract, but if they're providing the most amount of value, or they're treating you the best, or whatever, they're answering their phone when you call, whatever it is that they do that allows them to be that highest bidder but still stay busy as a contractor, I still don't think that they should be having that pressure. That's just my opinion. I know there are companies out there that have salesmen that get paid on commission, and that's their thing. They are paid to sell. They're paid to overcome your objections and paid to get you to sign that dotted line. But I can tell you, at least in my business, we give proposals out and I might follow up with them, but that's about it. I don't really pressure them. If they went with someone else, I might ask why, what could we have done better? But everyone chooses who they choose for one reason or another. So to me, a good decision today is still going to be a good decision tomorrow. So you signing that dotted line only to regret it a year later or a week later is obviously a red flag. So a good decision today, still going to be a good decision tomorrow, and I would avoid that. Next, it says asks you to pay for the entire job up front. We already talked about that. Or if they ask you to pay by cash or a Venmo type app payment, that might be a red flag as well. So I've actually had homeowners ask me, why don't y'all take Zelle, or why don't y'all take Venmo, or some of these other things like that? I might take Venmo for a small amount of money, but when we're talking about large amounts of money, at bare minimum, we're going to do it by check. If they want to pay by cash, that's okay, but we're going to take a little marker and mark it all, just like they do in the retail stores. We're going to make sure everything's on the up and up and give you a receipt right there on the spot. Something in writing saying, yep, we've just taken your money, and keep keeping everything on the up and up there. Last thing I'll end with is I told you at the beginning of the video a way that you can bring up some of these concerns with the contractor. In other words, if you have a contractor that it might feel a little weird saying, hey, we're about to do business together, I need your license. I want to see your license. Or I want to see a COI, a certificate of insurance. I want proof that you are on the up and up. And so a lot of folks, they kind of feel weird about doing that. They don't want to be that difficult customer and leave a bad taste in that contractor's mouth. What I was telling the lady on our guide is tell the contractor that your cousin, me. We're all cousins back to Noah, right? We're all kin back to Noah. So just tell the guy that your cousin is telling you, your quote unquote cousin is telling you to make sure that they provide proof of insurance or their license before they do work. Or your cousin is saying that you should get a signed contract or everything spelled out in a contract before they start the work. Have somebody that can be the bad guy, but you can still get what you want. Make your cousin the bad guy so you're not, and you still have a good long-term relationship with that contractor. That's just what I would say. Other contractors might see this in the future and be like, great, so now every time I hear someone talk about their cousin, they're actually making this up or they're a customer of your guide. Anyway, I think that'll help, to be honest with you, and that's what she agreed. She can make me the bad guy and figure that out. All that said, if I missed one, comment down below. If you've been taken advantage of or ripped off by a contractor in the past, love to hear about that. Please comment down below in the comments section on that. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.